So today we're going to be watching a video about how big business feeds fat acceptance and the issues that we have with corporate America pushing a lifestyle and trying to get you to eat all of this bad food for you, feeding our health epidemic here in America. So we're going to watch
If
a
I
little bit
may
of video
ask, how
about
much
that.
have they offered you
We're talking probably over $10,000 per post
Bribery.
for pushing Ozempic
for like a single Instagram post?
for a single Instagram post.
Believe it or not, this person is worth more than you or I combined. But how?
Not surprising. I'm not worth anything.
More people will die from the effects of obesity than from starvation.
$500
That's the
billion
truth.
in additional health
That's the
costs.
truth.
$500 billion.
Plus size clothes, supplements, and weight loss drugs are already hitting all-time sales today. And the fat industry
Ozempic is the most popular
estimated to be
drug
worth
that I've heard of so
$3
far.
billion by 2030, and fat acceptance is becoming normalized. And it's all by design. What's next?
The next step is turn people into helpless beings and that they must medicate for it. It's going to be drugged out.
So I talked to a fitness expert and a fat activist.
That dude
and
is
went
injecting shit into his body, and maybe she's also taking Ozempic. So for him to judge her for taking Ozempic is absolutely insane, because he is completely shoved full of probably trenbolone, Anavar, testosterone. Look at him. This is not natural. This isn't a natural body. So why be a hater on Ozempic?
down a rabbit
Let's see if
hole
he's
to
hater or
find out
not.
who exactly is profiting from
You think he's on
making
steroids?
America fat. I'm curious, do you have like a medical condition that makes it impossible for you to lose weight?
I have several medical conditions. I would
First of all, there's no medical condition that makes it impossible for someone to lose weight. There's not a single person who's had to deal with a food shortage for an extended period of time that's just like, man, I just can't lose weight. I just can't lose the weight. And although I'm not making a judgment call on whether or not somebody's willing to go on a diet, you do whatever you're going to do. To insinuate that there are people who have conditions that make it to where they cannot lose weight is very, very, very unlikely in most scenarios. Like, you might be able to make an argument here and there, but you let me know, please let me know what scenarios that you cannot lose weight.
wouldn't say it makes it impossible to lose weight. And then I'm on medications
She
for
wouldn't
different
even say
conditions
that.
that I have.
If you don't mind me asking, how much do you weigh?
Yeah, that's one that I'm like, I don't usually tell people, but it's well over 500 pounds. And so I
Whoa.
don't give a specific
Well,
number.
how tall
but,
is she, too?
Yeah.
Got it.
That's
So I
that's
saw
part
on
of
your
it.
website that you created a petition called the Fat Equality Bill of Rights Petition.
Yeah.
How are fat people discriminated against?
Fat people are discriminated against every day, and it's been ingrained in us to treat fat people poorly, to be honest. A lot of
guess.
fat people face medical discrimination. Oftentimes we're told about our weight, whether it's related or not. In travel, we are forced to pay for 2 seats if we take up more space than the average.
So, do you think that someone should have to pay for 2 seats if they take up 2 seats? Or should they have to pay for a larger seat that takes up more space on the plane if they're a larger person? Or if that they should pay a larger fee because they weigh more, because it costs more in fuel to transport them? Whether or not you consider it, there are costs accrued by the airlines and concessions that have to be made when you're overweight. So, do you think that the airlines should charge more for people who are overweight? Let me know.
Person, even though we're going to the same place. Social media platforms censor our bodies, fat bodies.
So what exactly are you trying to accomplish with
These
this
are all
Fat
bodies.
Equality Bill of Rights?
Yeah, I think it comes down to I want fat people to be equal. I don't want there to be a fat tax where we're paying more to access similar services. I want us to be able to show up and access
Only when they
the
accrue
same
more
things as
expenses.
anybody else without needing accommodations.
So it seems like it's kind of like you're advocating for fat people to be like a protected class, like race, gender, religion. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Oh.
fat rights are civil
Okay.
rights.
But just so I understand though, right? Like,
I
for
agree with
example,
that.
my race, I'm Asian and I'm an Asian male. Like, that's not something I had any sort of like choice in. Are you saying that fatness is on the same level as race and gender when it comes to choice?
Yes, you were
He's got a point. He's got a point there. He says, I couldn't choose this. Y'all chose that. Let's see what you had to say.
born Asian, and yes, I was born African American. I was also born fat, and as much as
You were not born fat, dog. There are babies who are like 8, 9 pounds born, which is over the average. They're not fat. They did not consume too much food in the womb, dog. They did not do less exercise in the womb than any other child. They're just genetically a larger specimen. So to tell me that like years later, like that's why?
Is I've, tried to do things many times in my life to change being fat. It just hasn't worked for me. And so for some people, it's absolutely not a choice. And I stand by that.
What do you think the chances are that I couldn't look at her attempts at this and break it down and be like, yeah, this is why you failed. Yeah, this is why you failed. Have you ever heard of secret eaters? The people who claim that they're doing everything that they can in order to lose weight, and they don't lose weight. It's because they're eating cheeseburgers in their cars whenever no one's looking. It's because they're miscounting their calories and tracking. It may be insensitive of me to say that, but don't tell me this nonsense garbage about it being impossible for some people. Like, please explain to me in the comments. Give me an example of when it's impossible to lose weight. I want to know.
I see. If I may challenge you though, isn't fatness something that you can control?
Being fat isn't a choice, and fatness has a spectrum, right? So, you have genetics, you have medications, you have environmental influences. There's so many things.
So she argues that for some, fatness isn't a choice, but if that's true, then why is almost half the country obese? The rates don't increase in just such a short time due to genetics and disorders. So clearly something changed. I think it's pretty obvious that our food is compromised. And it all happened fairly recently. Have you noticed how anytime you see like a movie or TV show in the 50s or 60s, they're literally chain smoking cigs after every breath? And then all of a sudden it just magically stopped.
Nicotine is an appetite suppressant.
Around the 80s or so is when the Surgeon General's report made a shocking revelation that smoking is horrible for you. And then now these big cigarette companies now had to diversify. And by the 90s or so, the two largest companies that has mastered the art of addiction started buying food companies. And soon enough, their scientists started doing what they do best, making their products addictive, creating the ultra processed food that we see today that has profited from the processing, such as high fructose corn syrup that literally make you more hungry the more you eat it, rather than making you feel more full. But then how the hell did food governments and scientists let all this happen, knowing
thank
that
you for the follow,
all this
man.
shit is so
Appreciate
unhealthy?
you being here.
Well, simply put, big food lobbied, and they lobbied hard.
They took over the institutions of trust to say ultra-processed food was healthy, and then they took their scientists and rigged the food itself to make it more addictive. So you had the literal food pyramid, which said ultra-processed food is great, low fat, carbs, base the pyramid. That was constructed literally by the cigarette industry to promote their addictive products.
Especially
so when big food
now that they can get access to addicting children to things, because they couldn't do that back in the day with cigarettes, although they did try. They used to have those candy cigarettes that got outlawed because it would kind of teach kids that smoking was cool. They had campaigns that campaigned for smoking to be the thing that cool people do. Even in cinematography, it was a cool thing to do. So now, what are they doing except for paying people possibly who are in the fat acceptance community to try to make it to where eating and being overweight is cool to do? And it's fine to do that. That way people are leaning into the idea of consuming more food than they need to, which costs more money than it needs to, which makes the companies more money than they should have. So obviously they're going to do that. Tell me if you were in their shoes as a corporate douchebag, if you would have done that too.
Manipulated health standards, they weren't just changing what healthy means. They were creating loyal customers who keep buying the very products that were making them fatter.
And
look,
I
big
love
food is
McDonald's.
just
I love
one
fast
piece
food.
in this trillion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
If being fat costs the average American thousands more per year, who's actually profiting from keeping you fat? So let's move
Not
on
the
a
health
little bit
insurance
towards your corporate
companies, that's for sure.
partnerships, because I saw on your website that you partnered with over 300 brands,
Yeah.
names like Google, Dove, and McDonald's. Do you think corporations actually genuinely support your activism, or using you and your followers as an opportunity for financial gain?
I think that that's a great question. I think performative inclusivity is something we need to talk more about. So, for instance, I've worked with McDonald's, like you said. Have we ever had a conversation about making their restaurants more accessible or having more representation in their marketing? No, I definitely haven't spoken to them about that. But then there are companies like Big Fig Mattress who specifically target plus size community, and you can see it through and through that they're supporting the community in every aspect. In the marketing, fat people are
Well, yeah, because that is their market. McDonald's markets to people who are overweight because those are the people who eat their food. People who are thin usually don't eat a lot of fast food. Believe it or not, that's not how that works. And of course, they're paying you for financial gain. Every ad every agency ever made was made to be paid so they can advertise so the companies can make more money. That's the point of advertising, dog.
They pay their creators that are fat well.
How do you advocate for fat liberation though, when like companies like McDonald's, let's be honest, if we had to kind of create like the average customer profile, they're probably going to be more obese people.
Yeah, for sure. McDonald's definitely is going to serve more fat people than, you know, say Apple or something like that. And I use a lot of these partnerships where I see changes that need to be made to kind of work my way into being an accessibility consultant.
Do you think corporations have also created this fat acceptance movement to monetize a big base of the American population as new customers?
Honestly,
yeah, they did.
The case might be there. There might be a point made. We have a demographic we need to meet, but I also do think that people see it, the body positive label, the fat acceptance label, the things like that, they see it as a marketing tactic as well. Fat liberation has been around for a really long time, but you're definitely seeing companies come into this. We're supporting and we're here to be inclusive.
That's what I would do if I'm a big company like that.
Because I agree with her. It's so much better when a company is actually honest to their values instead of just pandering to whatever trend. Like, I just feel like you can trust that way more. That's exactly why I use my sponsor Cook Unity to get restaurant quality healthy dishes.
Now I understood why I was saying that, because I was all like, kind of switched gears on that.
I'm Japanese and a food snob, so trust me when I say that these meals are actually fire. And especially this butter chicken made by Chef Brad and Chef Banu. And look, I've had a lot of curry. The sauce and the meat had a lot of flavor, and most importantly, I didn't feel slumped after eating.
I don't feel
it's healthy, it's easy, and it saves me a lot of time without having to cook or grocery shop or do the dishes. So I can actually maximize my time making these damn videos for y'all. So get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals at cookunity.com/gen with code GEN at checkout. Because whatever your goal is, what you eat is important. And there's absolutely no denying that when you eat good, healthy food, you feel way better than eating McDonald's. But this also shows exactly why McDonald's are sponsoring fat activists. Because unfortunately, they do know who their audience is. That makes sense because brands are going to want to find audiences in which they can sell to. But the problem is that it's also infiltrated others. Washington Post found that dietitians using hashtag no bad foods, hashtag food freedom, and hashtag ditch the diet are encouraging their followers to eat whatever them makes happy. These are dietitians.
It's just like when that stupid idea of intuitive eating came out, so people would stop tracking their calories and inevitably start eating more food. Okay, intuitive eating is a great tool to use if you're not on a diet and you're just trying to monitor the way that your body feels in order to determine your intake. But it's calories in, calories out, baby. King all day long. There's no arguing that point. It's that. It's everything else is just extra steps and things that go along with the calories in, calories out model. That is how it works. Thermodynamics, bro. So this doesn't make any sense.
That were backed by companies like General Mills, the people behind your favorite bullshit cereal. So I think you can now start seeing the bigger picture and how money behind these movements can start using messengers from fat activists to dietitians to slowly start chipping away at the public's perception. In this case, what's healthy. So what happens when a company gains absolutely nothing from fat activism and in fact can be hurt from it, but feel the pressure to conform? You said like one of your biggest initiatives is making it easier for fat people to travel. What is the customer of size policy and why are you demanding that airlines implement it?
Customer of size policy, essentially, it doesn't say one way or the other what is required. It's just more of a policy for this is how our airline.
So apparently I'm entitled for asking for better accommodations when I travel. Let me break this down for you. Saying I'm entitled for that is the exact same as saying you have the right to make me uncomfortable. Everyone has the right to make anybody else uncomfortable. It's literally at your discretion whether or not you feel uncomfortable. I cannot make someone feel uncomfortable if they don't feel uncomfortable. That's an internal thing that you do. You should read up on stoicism. That'll make you a stronger person in your mind. Nobody can affect you internally except for you. You have to take the information in and then you have to process it as a negative or a positive thing. You assign the title to it. That's the difference between negative criticism and constructive positive criticism. It's not that you don't have to change the language. You have to change the way you think of it. If someone says you're a really bad singer, you can either take that as something that's negative or take it as something that you realize, hey, I didn't realize I was a bad singer. Let me fix that. It's all in their mindset. That's her mind that's telling her that she's uncomfortable, not the words that were spoken to her.
Accommodates people of size. The customer size policy, though, specifically that I've modeled my petition to the FAA after, is the Southwest Airlines customer size policy. And with that policy, anybody who encroaches on
the Southwestern Airlines policy is a customer of size policy is a special rule put in place to make airlines a more size inclusive space for passengers who need some extra space. Plus size friendly customer of size policies.
Second seat
A
can
free
be
second
given a
seat.
free seat in order to make sure they're accommodated and they're comfortable on their flight. For me specifically, though, I take it a step further, and I think that all airlines should model their customer size policy after Southwest. And
Yeah, the problem with that is that Southwest decided to do that to be nice, to be good to people, but they didn't have to do that. That should not be a requirement. If I want to give you money and you're a panhandler, that should be fine. I shouldn't be forced to give you money, right? That's the way I feel about it. Was that like a bad analogy? Like, you tell me.
provide that second additional seat, and even a third if you're encroaching upon that much space. It's considerate for your body, but also anyone else flying next to you.
Because if we're gonna be real, this whole thing that she's talking about only really stands if fatness is truly like a disability that you're born with and you can't change. Because I don't think anyone here can deny that we should absolutely accommodate people who are disabled. But if it's something that you can change,
We should.
come on, that's ridiculous. So really the
Yeah,
question
ridiculous.
becomes personal responsibility, and I wanted to find answers. And so I wanted to talk to this expert, and especially this one, because of this reel.
No, people who are overweight but active were more healthy than those who were overweight but inactive.
Because in order to understand
of
how
course.
the last
That makes
player
sense.
is able to profit so much, we have to separate truth from opinion. Understand how a movement can go from acceptance to ridiculousness.
So in my entire life was spent in athletics. I used to eat whatever I wanted, looked relatively good while doing it. And then when that stuff stopped and I didn't change my dietary habits, I noticed that I wasn't really liking what I saw
Harmonica,
in the mirror.
thanks for the
I was
follow.
starting to go a certain direction. And then finally I was like, okay, I got to figure this stuff out. I figured out that through manipulating certain variables, it was just a mathematics game. It became
is.
very, very frustrating to me to
Absolutely.
see other people who wouldn't recognize that it was and would say a lot of things contrary to that, like, oh, it doesn't have to do with calories, it just has to do with my hormones. And that kind of catapulted me into a career of debunking various fitness and nutrition myths.
Honestly, I'm so on board with this. Debunk these nutrition myths because people are so misinformed, and I think it has to do with our education system not informing us of the things that we need to know in order to survive as human beings and have a healthy lifestyle. Being financially healthy, where was my class on that? Being physically healthy, I went to gym and stuff. I didn't learn any of this in my health class. And being mentally healthy, like how is all of this being in I need to know these things. Why are you teaching me about things that I don't need to know about and leaving all of this off the table for me? Like, this is important. Like, what else should we know other than that? You tell me.
And that's why I have an issue with the whole idea of acceptance. We don't accept alcoholism. We don't accept drug addiction. And a movement that bases its entire name around the title acceptance does not make sense to me when it comes to something that is that detrimental to your health.
I think we need to define what acceptance is. I think acceptance is being okay with the fact that people are doing things that are bad for them because they feel like it. And you should have the ability to do what you want if you feel like it, regardless of if it's good or bad or not for you. And now, once you're doing whatever you're doing starts to negatively affect other people, I would say that that is the line. My rights begin where yours end, sure, right? But you should allow people to do that. Now, accepting that it's a healthy thing, that's different. Now you're trying to tell me something that's not true at all. And I don't agree with that. Let's accept you as the person you are doing the things that you do and agree that they're bad for you.
It's a great point. Because when fatness is now affecting 40% of the population and costs people $1.7 trillion per year, why the hell was this epidemic not being taken seriously? Of course, there's a lot at stake to not fix it. Because
Well, also it invokes, it infiltrates people's freedom of doing whatever they want to do. They should be free to be able to do that. And they should also have repercussions for doing those things. Higher health insurance policies, higher rates whenever they do get health insurance. They should get have to deal with the fact that they do have to pay for 2 seats at the airlines. There should be a negative side of doing something that isn't good for you or good for society. And there should be a positive side of doing something that is right for society and good and healthy for you. And the benefits should be, I pay for 1 seat, my insurance is lower. There's a lot of good things that come out of it, but you should be able to opt out of that and eat whatever you want. That's what I think.
when you have a golden ticket that convinced people that you can solve their problem with no extra work, you spend all the ad dollars in the world to keep it that way. And the most ironic part about this final player is that even though it's benefiting the most from the fat acceptance movement, might also be the very thing that ends it.
Ozempic and the body condition of most of the people at the Golden Globes shows that the fat acceptance movement was all a scam. The moment
that you were able to get rid of all the fat that everyone was trying to accept with the little effort of putting a needle inside of your body, everyone's idea of fat acceptance has collapsed. Go figure. We knew this. We knew it was all disingenuous, and we knew that it wasn't true. Lizzo's a great example of that as well. So if you disagree with me, let me know.
that you had an easy route out of being overweight. Body positivity went out of the window. That's so true.
Because yeah, what the hell happened to all the acceptance? I mean, just look at the sales over the last few years and what it's projected to be. And now look at their stock that has exploded to become one of Europe's most valuable companies. And now we have unbearable celebrities like James Corden's to those that yap about acceptance like Oprah, who literally used to back Weight Watchers that actually promotes like real diet and exercise, to now all of them using Ozempic. And it's also not just the fatter celebrities that are using it. It's becoming an epidemic, and it's
I think Ozempic's
only
great.
just the beginning. How common are you seeing Ozempic?
I think Ozempic is great. Here is why, even though nobody asked me, is that Ozempic allows you to lose weight, and it allows you to deal with less hunger during that process, which is the shitty part of the process, right? But the thing is if you don't exercise and lift weights and then you don't get off of it and wean yourself off of it properly, you become this skinny, fat, skin and bones looking ass, and it is not a good look. It isn't a good look. It looks unhealthy. You look emaciated at that point. So it's a tool. It's a part of a system that you can use to make things easier. It is not a end-all be-all of weight loss. You have to understand that. It still takes effort.
Whether it be amongst your clients or people you know.
It's incredibly common. I'll deal with people every day who are like, oh yeah, my aunt is on this, my cousin's on this.
What's next?
The next step is to turn people into helpless beings, or make them believe that they are completely helpless and that they must medicate for it. And so that is going to become the logical conclusion rather than a last step. It's starting to become more popular too in the bodybuilding community. Because one of the main mechanisms of action for GLP-1s is that it does.
What are the chances that that guy's not on steroids? Like, you tell me, is it like 1 in 10? 10% chance? 20% chance? 100% chance he's on steroids, maybe? It's like he's injecting himself with shit too.
So you'll get people who are trying to cut down to body fat levels that aren't sustainable. And the leaner you get as a bodybuilder, the hungrier you get.
So it's reached everyone, but especially middle-aged older women, and it's no coincidence that that's also the group that's most represented by the fat acceptance movement, because come on, there's no fat acceptance for guys. Because what if I told you that Novo Nordisk, the company behind Ozempic, donated $500,000 to an advocacy group called the Obesity Action Coalition, and hundreds of thousands to other similar various advocacy groups? But now they're trying to change policy, and they're targeting specific groups in order to achieve that, like giving thousands of dollars to Black organizations, such as sponsoring a panel at the Congressional Black Caucus Conference. We'll get to that in a sec, but is it also why they decide to target Black
Let 'em give the
creators
money.
like Jalen. Have you been approached by Ozempic to sell to your audience?
Who's Jalen?
Yeah, I've been, I don't think I can say
Oh,
Ozempic
her.
specifically, but I've been approached by these like agencies that are working with, and I probably get an email a month asking me if I'm interested in pushing the GLP-1s. And I've actually spoken out against Ozempic and worked with a company
Why?
to
It's a
help
great
people
tool.
sue Ozempic for the medical
great tool
and
to
health
use.
conditions that they were causing and that their product was causing harm. And so
If I may ask, how much have they offered you
we're talking probably over $10,000 per post for pushing Ozempic.
for like a single
They got the
Instagram
money
post?
for it.
A single Instagram post.
What other kind of products have they reached out to you about, like weight loss pills?
I don't think she's a good poster child
Like,
for it.
I've had someone offer to give me bariatric surgery. If I flew to their country, they would completely cover the cost and my expenses to stay in their resort thing while I get
Not a
weight loss
bad
surgery.
idea.
And that was for a company based out of Turkey. And I've had them reach out probably 5 times over the 6 years I've been doing this.
Look, I disagree with you. I believe a lot in health, fitness, and keeping what I consider a healthy weight. But the fact that you're standing on your values and frankly standing on business, I commend that a lot. Do you feel like
I guess
a lot of other fat activists are now starting to sell out?
So I think the ability to sell out is there. If you want it, you can start working with the GLP-1s. You can start licensing your content to weight loss programs that are trying to build AI, to, you know, things like that, right? There's so many ways you can sell out.
It seems like there's a lot of lucrative opportunities to be a fat activist. Man, maybe I take
well, as he said, she makes more money than all of us combined earlier in the video. And so why would she take something that would make her followers not like her anymore? Because they're all probably fat activists too. So why would you go against your own community like that? I don't
statements
understand.
back.
Obviously,
Maybe
this is
I
how
need
it plays
I
out.
need a course.
She's not an
change on
idiot.
on my content. I'm
She's just
kidding.
overweight.
You're welcome over here, man. We'll accept you.
She's smart. She knows what she's doing.
So look, I'm gonna give credit when credit is due, and I commend her a lot for that. Because at that Congressional Black Caucus Foundation conference that I showed earlier, the reason Novo sponsored a panel discussion is all part of their big push to open up Medicare coverage to include weight loss drugs like Ozempic. Because as you can imagine,
Man.
that will substantially increase their profits. And what they
I don't think it's a profit thing of course it's a profit thing. I don't think it's just a profit thing. I think that if we do allow that to be covered under medical insurance and people lose weight, the cost of medical insurance is going to go down. Most of the people who are overweight are a severe drain on our healthcare system, and our rates are already sky high being in America. So hopefully we do allow that to happen, because if we're giving people drugs to lose weight, instead of them keeping the weight on, we're going to save money. Our premiums are all going to go down, baby. We should all be hoping for that.
did
Make
is
people
that they
healthier again.
strategically
Make people
picked
healthier again.
panelists that would tout their message, like Dr. Fatima Cody Stanford, a Harvard Medical School professor that specializes in obesity. And surprise, surprise, she's received consulting fees from Novo. So there's no wonder why she would go on and make a statement at that conference saying things like, we've denied care for obesity when we haven't for other chronic diseases, instead of recommending the only sustained way of losing weight, diet and exercise. So again, the funniest thing about all this is that Ozempic is literally destroying the fat acceptance movement by targeting and monetizing the very population that was a
very
part of it.
calculated.
So of course, Big
love
Pharma is benefiting heavily from the fat movement by keeping people on a subscription. But what I found is that they aren't the ones that are profiting most. So the fourth and final player,
let's see,
is the industry of insecurity. Because what I actually found out most through this investigation is that the more acceptance that you spread, the more your insecurity grows. Because the more you start becoming aware of the exact thing that you're insecure about. Do you think in many ways, both fitness and the fat acceptance movement is just profiting off of insecure people?
Yes, 100%.
That's basically the only reason why anybody would want to be thin other than being healthy. That's like, if you want to be healthy, that's one reason why. If you want to be thin, that's another reason why. If you want to be socially more attractive, that is the main reason why for most people. I like going to the gym because it de-stresses me. I like going to the gym because I like to feel healthy. I like to go to the gym because I like to look good. Now, the percentages of why I go to the gym might vary depending on my personality and how I'm feeling at the time. But for the most part, it's the first two. The third one is just something that comes with it. I don't ask for it. I just, like being a little bit fit. I like being able to go do activities and stuff and not being exhausted. Wow, right?
Muscle is for vanity reasons. They might not necessarily be happy with their physique. They might be dealing with some severe body dysmorphia. If at any point you think that getting to said physique is going to make you a happy person, it's just not true.
But with that said, acting on your insecurities doesn't necessarily make it bad. Do it right, and it can actually be the motivation for you to finally change. Because let me tell you, the worst position to be is in indifference. So at the end of the day, we're all gonna be influenced and monetized by something. Like if you're watching me still, YouTube and I are monetizing your attention. And so the question becomes, what will you choose? Because how you use and view your insecurity is the difference between signing up for the gym, signing up for Ozempic, or deciding to say f it all and staying fat. Let me ask you, do you think normalizing fatness downplays the undeniable serious health risks that are associated with being at a fatter weight?
I absolutely do not. This is the fact. Fat people exist now. Fat people have always existed and they always will.
But I agree, like fat people have always existed throughout history, but we are seeing undeniably unprecedented levels of obesity, especially in this country though. So I don't think we can also downplay that though.
Health looks different to all, and you are right. There are many diseases that are, made worse by your weight. So I understand that, and I respect that perspective. I just also think that there's an argument to be made that you can be healthy at any size.
That's not true.
Clearly, we may never agree, but just as fat activists shouldn't force society to conform to their beliefs, I'm also never going to force people to conform to whatever I believe. But with that said, with freedom comes responsibility and accountability over our choices. And until you can understand power and how it influences movements, you will be powerless to the movements designed to influence you. And so to help you with that, sign up to a free weekly newsletter where we uncover the money behind today's issues and also help you better understand how money and power works. Because frankly, we can't change the system, but if you learn to study their moves, you can learn to use it the right way. And click here to watch the next video, somewhere here.
That was a pretty good video, guys. I kind of agree with what he's saying. I'm kind of on his side for this stuff. I don't think that you having Ozempic necessarily makes you healthy whenever you're losing weight, unless you pair it with healthy habits and a healthy lifestyle for future longevity in that case. I don't feel like being overweight or being fat is a bad, negative thing. I think that if you want to do something like that, it's just like smoking cigarettes. If you want to smoke cigarettes, dude. Don't care. You should have every right to do that. But I don't want you to tell me that smoking cigarettes is healthy and it should be accepted that they should be able to smoke cigarettes in a restaurant, that they should be able to smoke cigarettes in a hospital, just because it's hate because, equality. That's just not how it works, my guy.